Hello and welcome back to the DebateGate Sports Podcast. This is a late episode that we were recording late, but we want to get it up to you before March Madness starts because these are last-minute bracket tips that you guys are totally going to see before the tournament starts, right, guys? Yeah, we're good at this. No, okay, yeah, we all know we're not. So let's get into it. So we're first going to start with like bracket help and upsets and stuff like that. You know, like injuries, any COVID stuff that, you know, people may not know of. And then as well as we're going to get into sleeper teams, and these sleeper teams are teams that you may not expect to get to the Elite Eight or the Final Four is what we are basically saying. Teams that, you know, people aren't really considering that can get as far as people think. Because I feel like this year, more than any other, there are a ton of people who just think it's going to be the big three and then like either the 1, 2, or 3 from the other conference, right? It's either going to be Gonzaga, Baylor, or Illinois, and then the other and then it's either going to be like Michigan, Texas, or Alabama, most people think. So now we agree with that mainly, but on the other hand, we want to give you some help. So let's start it with injuries / COVID. And the first big one is Kansas versus Eastern Washington. Now, this one, I think 10 times out of 10, if I could bet, and I would bet, if I was a bettor, I would put a ton of money down on Eastern Washington University to beat the shit out of Kansas. Now, people may be confused, right? Because typically on an upset, people are like, oh, I just feel this. No, this will happen. This will happen. Because the number 1 and number 2 scorers for Kansas, two of their top 3, so 2 and 3 scorers for Kansas are out with COVID, and their best post defender and best rebounder is one of those 2, and he's out with COVID. And Eastern Washington's best player, 7-foot center who's dominant in the paint and kind of can stretch the floor. So not a good matchup. That's not a good matchup when your best player that's supposed to be, or one of your best players that's supposed to be defending the other team's best player, especially if they're a post guy, and they're out, that's going to kill you. So I think as well as locker room chemistry and kind of being on a long delay with no Big 10, Big 12 tournament. I mean, I think they played one game, was it, Gavin? Right? One game?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they got knocked out pretty early.
No, they had to drop out of.
They did drop out. They dropped out because of COVID. So yeah, I don't know. I think maybe one game.
Yeah, maybe one game. So they've been off for a little bit, and the NCAA tournament is so much about momentum. And that brings me into mine, which I'm surprising Gavin with this, a momentum pick. And this I don't think is really like an original pick, but UCSB over Creighton. Because UCSB Gavin, UCSB has just won. I was looking. I think they've won 14 of their last 15, and the only time they lost was a back-to-back against the same team, which we've seen in the NBA really can go in either way because just people learn strengths and weaknesses much quicker and able to adapt to them the next game instead of waiting a couple of months. So besides that, as well as Creighton got mollywopped. I think it was a 37-point win.
They got absolutely crapped on. No, they're coming in with an open head wound. I said that in my bracket. They're coming with an open head wound. So talk about momentum. It's like polar opposites of each other.
Exactly.
Creighton also has had some issues with there's been like some coaching speculation as well. So just kind of like turmoil in the locker room, which you can't really have if you want to win in March Madness.
No, not very good. And so with Creighton, it can either go one of two ways. Either they're like, we have to prove that we're not frauds and we have to beat the shit out of every team that we go into, and they end up going on a run up until, of course, they run into the buzzsaw that Gonzaga is because there's no way they're getting past them. Or they just take it like how we both think that they will. At least I think I do. And assuming by what you said on your bracket, you think they will as well, where they are going to lose the first round because they'll be discouraged. The next one is, and I think most people already have this, that would be Loyola Chicago over Georgia Tech. Take that every day of the week. Do not ever have Georgia Tech winning this game. Ever. You don't want Georgia Tech winning this game. And you may be wondering why. They just won the ACC. Well, first off, the ACC ain't as strong as it used to be, right? It's not as good as it used to be. Number 2, their best player who just won most outstanding player is out with COVID as well. He's gone. He's out of there. Nope, he's gone. Moses Wright out versus Loyola Chicago, and he's their star big man. You want to know why that matters even more than just like, let's say it's a guard? Well, you want to know who's the best player on Loyola?
The man named Cameron Crotwig. The GOAT.
Exactly right, Gavin. The
Even
GOAT.
more important because he was a part of that historic Loyola team that made it to the Final Four when he was a freshman. So he's been there before and he knows what it takes. So not only are you having just general experience from being a senior, you have a senior that's part of a historic team that went to the Final Four, that went deep into the like postseason for Loyola. So I think that's even better.
For sure. And then, you know, experience, best player, and then the guy he's going against is going to be a backup. That's not going to end well. And also, this is a fun thing that people haven't noticed, and this is pretty crazy, is that Loyola Chicago is actually ranked number 4 in the entire country, number 4 in opponents' point per possession.
Number 1 in opponents' points per game.
Yeah. They are an
55 opponents' points per game. Granted, the Missouri Valley, but
the Missouri Valley wasn't like shit this year.
They had Drake. Drake was 11.
Didn't Drake just win? Right? Drake just won.
Drake just won against Wichita.
Which is good. I like Drake more than Wichita State. Speaking of old Missouri Valley standouts, Wichita State. But yeah, it wasn't a slouch conference like, you know, Colonial Conference or Ivy League or something like that. Like, it's not a slouch conference. It's just nowhere near a Power 5. It's just not. It's an in-between conference. It's a mid-major. That's why they're called mid-majors. So that would be the, what is that now? 3rd sleeper or upset team?
Yep.
Watch. Yeah, 3rd. I would like to talk about the South Division. Gavin, would you like to take this one away, or would you like me to continue? Because there's 3 matchups here I want to talk about.
You can introduce them because I'm not entirely sure what you're talking about. So
the middle 3: Utah State versus Texas Tech, Purdue versus North Texas, and Villanova versus Winthrop. Would you like to go with any of those?
So I don't know what Josh's opinion is on Villanova versus Winthrop. But for me, I have enough trust in Jay Wright. My gut is telling me to pick Villanova here. However, they have lost their starting point guard, Colin Gillespie. So you heard it in my picks. Like I also said in that video, it's going to be a battle of who can control the pace, because Villanova has a not historically, but just like a well-known style of play as being very slow-paced and like half-court. They'd like to play in the half-court, whereas Winthrop is a very run-the-floor, get as many possessions as we can, score a lot of points. So without Colin Gillespie, it's going to be harder for Villanova to control the pace, but they got bounced from the Big East tournament early. So Jay Wright has another week to prepare for this matchup. And I like Villanova's chances. A lot of people have Winthrop, but I have Nova.
And here's the other thing with Winthrop. If you're looking at their stats straight up, right? If you're using Capital One and you do the comparison stats, they're pretty similar, right? The opponent points per game, 66.8 for Winthrop, 67.1 for Villanova. Points per game, 79.5, Winthrop, 75.5. And then points in the paint per game are really, really for Winthrop. But here's the difference. If you actually go back and you look at Winthrop, right, and you look at what they've done against their, to be honest, shitty-ass conference, like this is not what I'm talking about with this is not what I'm talking about the Missouri Valley. They are not they are very shit. Very, very shit. They are very bad, and they aren't crushing opponents. Versus Cam. I don't know what Cam is. 2-point win. Versus CHSO, 2-point win. Versus they're blowing out some teams, but they aren't blowing out others. 84-80. 80 win, and then a loss against UNCA, 55-47. They aren't blowing out these teams. There are some that they are blowing out. Yes, they do. They beat this team 70 to 50, 75 to 65. That's closer. But they weren't doing too well, against their own shitty ass conference. So that's why they're 23-1, is it? So it's insane that people are like, oh my gosh, Winthrop upside of the century because they're out with their point guard. Their point guard isn't even their best distributor on their team. He doesn't lead them in the assists, I'm pretty sure. So isn't really the greatest in loss, in comparison to Kansas. But Winthrop, I'm going to be honest. I don't see them winning at all. I think that they're an overrated team that I think, they have a chance, of course, because every team has a chance. So it's the fun part of March Madness. But in this case, I think they're being overhyped way, way too much. But
agreed.
Matchup is Purdue, North Texas.
So I have North Texas winning. And there's a few things that go into this. Yes, North Texas' strength of schedule is not good. They're in another shitty conference. But what's more important to me, or I guess what makes me like North Texas over Purdue, is when you look at their numbers, they're very efficient. And efficiency is something that you can do against good teams, you can do against bad teams. So when you're shooting 38% from the field from 3 on 21 attempts, that's something you can do against good teams. It's one thing if they're putting up 100 points a game, but they're only shooting 30% from 3 because they're taking advantage of bad teams. No, they're doing it in an efficient way, in a way that's sustainable against good teams like Purdue. For Purdue had some of their best players are freshmen, as well as they heavily rely on the three-pointer. But they're not doing that efficiently. They're shooting at 32, 33% all day. So that's not very encouraging either. And like I said, having your best players as freshmen isn't always the best option. Purdue also has a tendency to lose pretty early. They lost to Little Rock not too long ago. And the one time that they went pretty far was because of senior Carson Edwards. So I don't like Purdue's chances too much in this one. I'm going with North Texas, and I think Josh is as well.
I am as well. They're my upset team from this, one of my upset teams from this division, conference, whatever you want to call it. And the reason why is, as Gavin said, they shoot very, very efficiently from the floor. They shoot nearly 38% from 3. And I was watching their highlights to check up on their teams. It isn't dumb shots, right? It's good, smart shots, wide open corner threes, all that kind of stuff, as well as Purdue. Like Gavin said, besides the Carson Edwards run, they have a tendency to lose early. And without Carson Edwards, I mean, obviously, he isn't the biggest difference maker in the world, but this is a very different team than that team.
Yeah, that year he was a pretty big difference maker, not gonna lie.
No. I mean, saying between him and what they have now, it isn't best point guard isn't going from Ayo Dosunmu to whatever they have now. It's going from a hot, streaky point guard to what they have now. So it's not the biggest difference, but in the moment, in that run, he was a huge difference maker. I'm saying overall as a team that, he was such a liability on defense and that kind of thing that it would drag down his value a little bit overall through the entire season. But yes, extremely hot, extremely value at the end. Didn't he score 48 points or something like that? Insane in the Sweet 16 game.
Yeah, something ridiculous.
I think it was 44.
Yeah, he set multiple records that year.
Yeah.
It was fun.
And this North Texas team is on a roll, an extreme, extreme hot streak. And Purdue, I really like them. I mean, I want to go to Purdue, so I'm a little bit biased, but they have an inability to really beat the upper tier teams in the Big Ten, which, I mean, makes sense. They're some of the best teams in the country, but it's kind of, it's shown that they aren't really they aren't really able to climb that hump. And I just feel like North Texas has been on such a run lately, and their offensive style is so keen and so efficiently ran, as well as their defense in efficiency allowed and points per possession allowed, top 20, where Purdue's are both outside the top 100. So North Texas defense, yes, of course, you got to always do the whole, oh boy, but the conference, whatever. It's still impressive no matter what conference you're in to only allow your team to allow under like a 0.9 points per possession. It's impressive to do this no matter who you're going against. So I like them, and I like their chances, as well as their efficiency rating. Like their defensive efficiency is so much better, true shooting percentage so much better. The only major issues, like I said, is that strength of schedule. And when it comes to upsets, does that really matter? Lehigh over Duke. There was a recent one, Buffalo over Arizona, when Pac-12 wasn't a disappointment of a conference. So strength of schedule doesn't matter that much when it comes to upsets.
How about UMBC over Virginia?
That's loser talk. That's
just not even an upset.
That's not an upset. No, they were expected. But let's move on to the last one in this division. That's Texas Tech versus Utah State. I love Utah State here. Once again, not in aren't they? Wait, what division are they? They're in the MAC, right? Or the Pac?
Utah State, no, they're in the Mountain West with
the Mountain West. Okay, yeah. So they're not in a shitty division. They're in like considered one of the upper tier mid majors, right below, probably right even with or just under the AAC. All-American Conference. So it's not a shitty division, once again, as well as their defensive numbers are insane. 7 opponent points per possession, and opponent effective field goal percentage, 15. And then offensive rebound percentage, opponent offensive rebound percentage, number 6. Insane defense. And that's really important in these games. You watch these games, and they always come down to the last shot, right? Defense, teams, you don't really see 89, 90-point games. You don't see the 96, 98 scores or the 89, 90 scores. You see 65, 60, 55, 40, 54, that kind of thing. So you don't see these high-scoring games. So defense really helps teams like that. Now, Texas Tech is known for having a good defense, but statistically this year, they haven't been that good. They've been fine. You know, they 23 in points per possession. That's good, but 69% on effective field goal. So they are allowing a ton of shots, or right? Yeah, they're just allowing a ton of shots, or they're not allowing a ton of shots, but the teams are shooting really efficiently against them, which means they're getting good shots. And if a team is able to get good shots, like how Utah State does, that's going to be bad for them. So I think
I don't agree with you. I have Texas Tech winning, but I will say, and you did not mention this, Utah State has played San Diego State twice this year, and they've won both games against San Diego State, who is like their best team that they've played all year. Played them twice, beat them twice. And I believe they held them under 50 points in one of those games. So, yeah, I could see Utah State winning. I didn't have them winning, but it's possible.
For sure. Now, Gavin, is there any teams you would like to talk about for would you like to talk about for upsets, or do you want to move on to sleep?
No, I think we should stay in the South, because moving a few brackets, few teams down, I want to look at this 7-10 matchup between Florida and Virginia Tech. Florida, please do not fall for the hype. Florida is not a 7 seed, in my opinion. Pretty much, they've beaten up on all the bad teams, but they have no real quadrant 1 wins. Pretty much, they've kind of been blessed with having a lot of like the low, not necessarily, I shouldn't even call them like crap teams, because they're in the SEC, but like of the SEC teams, they're playing mostly like Texas A&M. They're playing Kentucky, who's bad this year. They're playing Vanderbilt, who's bad this year. They're playing Auburn, who's not good this year. They're playing a lot of those teams, and they're winning those games. But anytime they play in Alabama and LSU, they're not winning those games. Virginia Tech, on the other hand, they've dealt with COVID a lot. And they were at one point 16th in the country. So Virginia Tech as a 10 seed is ridiculously low. I have Virginia Tech winning in the majority of my brackets. I highly, highly advise you pick Virginia Tech over Florida.
I completely forgot about them because I pick Virginia Tech in every single one of my brackets. So I keep forgetting that Florida's the 7 seed and Virginia Tech's the 10 seed. So that's the crazy thing, and I 100% agree with you. And when you look at the stat thing that you can pull up for Capital One, Virginia Tech leads or is tied with Florida in nearly every single one, as well as, like you said, they were ranked just a little bit ago. So very good team. I would also just like to add that the fact that Texas Tech played in the Big 12, yet Utah State played in the Mountain West, they have the same quad one winning percentage of 28.6%. Texas Tech 4 for 14 and Utah State 2 for 7. So strengths of schedule, I mean, overall, yeah, but against quad one teams, they're the same. I think that is it for me. For at least, let me look. That is it for me. For my upset watch, upset watch. Or I would like to talk about quickly just Michigan State's going to beat the shit out of BYU because BYU played nobody besides Gonzaga, and then in those games they got beat the shit out of. And the Michigan State's on a hot streak, as in beating a ton of good teams by beating Illinois, unfortunately, that one time, and then beating and then losing to them. But they still beat them, beating Michigan, and I think they beat Ohio State as well. So in the past month, like this past couple weeks. So I'd say that would be an upset watch, but I don't think most people have BYU. I just think that they're that high because of their record. Alrighty, let's move on to teams that we think can make the Final Four that most people, or the Elite Eight, that most people won't think, because this is what sleeper teams are for going deep in the playoffs. And I'll let you take the floor because I've been talking way too much, Gavin. Go ahead.
No, we love hearing your nice voice. A few teams I have in mind. We'll start over here because that's where my screen is. Uconn. They're getting their leading scorer back. And when I say leading scorer, I mean a leading scorer. I'm talking 19.9 points per game. James Bouknight, he is the real deal. Maryland is a bad matchup for them. I'm not going to lie. They have the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. If they can escape Maryland, I think they can beat Alabama, because Alabama, they have a lot of depth guards, but they don't necessarily have one direct guy that they can go to. The best guy is a defensive-minded big man. I mean, he can play offense, but like he was also the SEC Defensive Player of the Year. Because of that, and since UConn has the guy where they can go to and he can take over the game, UConn over Alabama is not far, is not like out of this world. I actually have them beating Alabama in our wager, Josh. So,
whoa, you're betting money on this? That's illegal. No, we have a little friendly wager going between Gavin and I. So
$10 because we're just very rich. We're made of
we're very swimming in that money and work all the time. So Gavin's basically giving me a free $10. But go ahead, Gavin.
That's what he thinks. Just wait. Over here, Oklahoma State, also known as Cade Cunningham and 9 others. He is so fun to watch. Excuse me. And I think they have the best chance of knocking off the Cock and IO for Illinois. I have them meeting in the Sweet 16, and I have Oklahoma State winning. I really do. They do have a little bit of interior defense to stop the Cock down low, just the absolute mammoth of a big man, Kofi Coburn. But looking at Oklahoma State, they find a way to get it done. Tied for some of the most quadrant one wins with 10. They're 10-6, and they're in a tough division. They've beaten teams like Baylor. They've beaten teams like Texas. They've beaten teams like
West Virginia.
Oklahoma. West Virginia. Thank you. So, yeah, Oklahoma State, I think they're the real deal. They like playing spoiler. Yes, Texas Tech. I think they have the best chance to beat Illinois. And while I do love Illinois, Well, I do have Illinois winning in multiple brackets, like winning it all, winning like the whole thing, the big cheese. I think Oklahoma State's going to get it done. At least for this bracket, they will.
I am sad to say I've heard this decision before from you, but I am sad to say that you've still kept this decision. Side tangent real quick, and I know we're trying to cut down on side tangents. I just think this is important because you brought it up. What the fuck, decision makers? Excuse you guys. Giving Illinois quite possibly one of the hardest paths to the Final Four ever, to the championship ever. Okay, first, Drexel, don't care. 16 seed, we're not Virginia. We're not going to lose. As you can see, I'm going to say we because I'm a fan of Illinois. Then Loyola Chicago, because like I said, they're going to win because Knight, Wright, whatever his name is out, so they're going to win. Number 4 defense in the nation, and then number 1 on total points per game. So, wow, okay. So then we have to face one of the best defensive teams in the country, and then we have to face Mr. First overall pick because they'll probably get there because Tennessee's kind of a fraud, and Oregon State's not going to beat them even if they win, and then they'll probably not lose first round. So let's say they get there. Mr. First overall pick, a 6'9" playmaking defender with a great shot who's like projected to be the next Magic, but with like a 3-point shot, basically. Insane. Why do we have to face him? Why is he a 4 seed? So we have to face him pre-Elite 8. I don't know. He has a better record. They beat West Virginia twice. They went further in the Big 12 tournament than West Virginia, but they're like, West Virginia's a 3 seed, then Oklahoma State's a 4 seed. Just to fuck over the cock. And when we say the cock, we're referring to Kofi Coburn. So, because his last name is spelled more like Cockburn. Get the joke, haha. But then, the more we do research, Gavin and I have both agreed on this, Houston. Can
I make this one point? The Elite 8, if Illinois is to make it there, they will likely face Houston. Houston is supposed to be their hard opponent. Houston could very well be their easiest opponent outside of Drexel, unless Drexel's the GOAT, which they could be. Houston could be their easiest opponent.
Drexel.
Houston could be their easiest opponent, which is crazy to say. And Houston's legit. They're so good this year. And they could be the easiest
best number 2 seed. Hot take. They're the best number 2 seed. Fuck you, Iowa.
I would agree with that. Yeah, screw Iowa.
And then Ohio State's a bunch of pussies. And then do you think Alabama does anything? Besides the fact that I think
that's football.
But you know,
and Josh's Final Four team.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yes. But no, I'm being honest when I think Houston's the second best team because Iowa can't beat any of the teams because of Luka Garza. Now you might be like, Luka Garza, the Big Ten Player of the Year, going to be the National Player of the Year. This man is one of the shittiest big man defenders I've ever seen. He is so goddamn ass. So anytime he faces anyone with any strength, any power, any skill, like the Cock or Hunter Dickerson, man gets annihilated. So that kind of brings them down as well as they have a bunch of pasty white boys who can't really play defense. So, I mean, they're just kind of run and gun. Ohio State, like I said, bunch of pussies. Then Alabama, once again, bunch of pussies. And then Houston, really good record against quad 1 teams, really great winning percentage of quad 1 teams. They play fast, they play physical, they play athletically. They're great at shooting. They make great decisions. They're good at passing. They're a great team. And then, like you said, they might be the easiest opponent. What the fuck? So I didn't realize how much Illinois was fucked over. The more research I've done, they're very, very fucked over. But that might be a sleeper right there that we just talked about. Oklahoma State and Houston. As Gavin already talked about Oklahoma State, and I already did. Yes, and then Houston. Why do I say Houston is a sleeper? They're a number 2 seed. I just said they're the best number 2 seed. Because people think Illinois is the second or first best team in the country, which I agree with. So everyone has Illinois going. But don't count out Houston. That's coming from an Illinois fan. I'm scared of Houston. I'm scared of Houston. I'm scared of Oklahoma State. And that's why they're both sleepers. But let's move over across the bracket. And you already talked about Uconn. Never mind. We're moving up the bracket. Where we will have a team in Oregon. Would you like to talk about Oregon? Or would you like me to take on Oregon?
You can talk about Oregon.
I will talk about Oregon. So, I really like Oregon. they've beaten all the teams they're supposed to. They even beat teams that they're not supposed to, like a Colorado. They've been really, really good in the Pac-12. Yes, I know, just the Pac-12. But I think they have a chance at upsetting Iowa there in that second round. I think that they can make it to the I think they have a strong, strong chance at making it to the Elite Eight. And that is because they're very efficient from three. They're comparable efficiently to Iowa, which is one of the best three-point shooting teams in the entire country, and their defense is 12 times better, as I just talked about, Iowa being a shitty, shitty defense. They're just about as good shooting from three, and then they have a strong physical team that's able to battle it in the paint, and they're able to get actual stops. They're actually able to get stops. So I think this team's very good. I think they're a sleeper team. And the main reason is just because of their history. Like, I think it was the last time, weren't they a 7 seed when they went to the Final Four and lost to, or were they a 5 seed?
No, they were a 3 seed.
Oh, okay. But they still upset, who was it? They upset a Kansas, right? It was 1 seed Kansas.
Yeah.
So
but they were last year and made it to the Sweet 16 as well. So, like.
2019. But yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very good team. Like I said, they're kind of like discount Baylor, right? A bunch of 6'6" to 6'10" guys who are super athletic and just play a switching defense. So I really like them, and I think they can be and will be really, really good. And I think that they can, and I do think they will, beat Iowa.
I didn't realize this. When I researched Oregon a bit more, they have a lethal 1-2 punch with their guard, Chris Duarte, and their forward, Eugene Omorugi. Again, I don't know if I pronounced that right. Both of them are averaging 17 points per game, which is rare to see that as a combination between guard and forward in college basketball. One of the best 1-2 punches in the tournament. So, yeah, another sleeper pick. KenPom likes them as well. I believe they're top 20 for KenPom. So, Oregon
is definitely a good sleeper team. And I think I want to talk about that is it. I think that is it. Unless you want to talk about Colorado. Do you want to talk about Colorado or is there a different one?
What?
I said, do you want to talk about Colorado or is this a different one?
It's Colorado. My Buffaloes.
Your Buffaloes. Go ahead, Kevin.
My Buffaloes that I have in the Elite Eight. Colorado's so under the weather, and I feel like they can use that to their advantage. Josh is very high on them. I am. A lot of the
Did you just say I'm not very high on them?
No, I didn't think you had them going very far.
I had them losing third round to
Florida State.
No, to Michigan.
Okay.
Just because I'll explain that when I talk about them. But go ahead. I am pretty high on them than most people.
Yeah, so I feel like they're super underrated, and I kind of compare them to the Auburn team of 2019, which nobody talked about, including me. I fell for that. I'm like, oh, this Auburn team, haven't really heard much about them, and they made it to the Final Four. So we've seen teams do it before. I think Colorado can take advantage of that as well. They're pretty balanced. According to KenPom, they are 17th in offensive efficiency and 29th in defensive efficiency in the country, which is solid, and they've won some games. They've beaten USC. They've beaten Oregon. They've beaten that's about it for good Pac-12 teams. Yeah, I started overrating the Pac-12 there for a hot minute, thinking there were more than 3 good teams. But yeah, I think Colorado, I think they can make it pretty far. I think they'll definitely beat Georgetown, man. Screw Georgetown. And then Florida State, not as good as they were in previous years. That'll be a tough matchup. And I also have them beating Michigan. So, yeah. Colorado, don't sleep on the Buffaloes.
I do really like Buffalo, but I don't have them beating Michigan. I used to want to because I hate Michigan for obvious reasons, but I had a major issue with Colorado. They're only, unless for some reason,
snow in the mountains.
wow, okay, so apparently Jesus lied to me. No, never mind about that. I still have them losing because I originally had them, I think it may have been Florida State. Maybe I've gotten this wrong, but I actually had Colorado winning that game. But then I looked into it and I thought one of the two teams between Florida State and Colorado did not have a good center, but it's obviously not going to be Florida State because Florida State, for some reason, just breeds big men, all these massive, massive players. So, yeah, I don't know why I thought Colorado. I just looked them up again to double check me, but apparently they do have a decent center. So I guess I will have them winning the game, but probably not still because they're one of their stars, Livers. He'll be coming back by that time because he's questionable for the first game, so they probably won't play him because it's a 16 seed, and they'll probably wait to see if they play Bonaventure or LSU, and then maybe play him then. They'll probably activate him and sit him until unless the game is close or out of hand, and then he'll probably be back by the time they reach Colorado, which I think they will. But I do think they're definitely a sleeper team to make the Final Four or the Elite Eight because they're a very, very good team, as Gavin already explained. So I think that just about does it for teams that we have as sleepers. And we'll just recap that real quick. So teams we have as sleepers, that teams that, could go to the Final Four or the Elite Eight that most people aren't thinking of would be Oklahoma State, Houston, Colorado, and Oregon. Did I miss any there?
Don't believe so.
And then upset teams you should pick are not really an upset team, but like a team that most people aren't picking in Loyola, Chicago. Upset teams in Utah State, Winthrop, or not Winthrop, but Utah State, North Texas, and don't pick Winthrop. And then UCSB. And as well as, the 11 seed and the 10 seed in Virginia Tech and MSU. So go choose your brackets wisely. Thank you all for listening. And we appreciate it. And go Illinois, go Illini, ILL, INI, Fighting Illini, blah, 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 all that kind of shit. Subscribe, comment down below. Tell us how we're wrong, how you come and see this after March Madness. And you're just like, oh my God, you guys are so incapable of uploading stuff on time because this was posted probably a minute before the game started and none of you could apply this to your bracket. But it's all righty. We appreciate you for listening this long if you have. Big ups to you, I guess. Much love, all that kind of shit. See you guys.